Thank you for joining Pioneer, or for those who work at PLS, thank you for being Pioneer. I'm Chris, STEAM Specialist at Norman Public Library Central, and today I'm going to show you how to take your video production to the next level with the free DaVinci Resolve editing software. This video is intended for people who have suddenly found themselves being asked to make videos, have done a couple in iMovie, Windows Movie Maker, or something like that, and are ready to start digging in and editing a bit deeper, and gaining more control over your finished product. To take full advantage of this video, you should already be comfortable editing movies in one of the simpler editors. If not, I strongly suggest starting there. My colleague Ben has made a video about using iMovie, and there are tons of YouTube tutorials out there on your other options. Making videos for the first time is pretty intimidating, and software like Resolve is an advanced and more complex tool. Okay, so if you're still here, then you have decided that this might be for you. First things first, you need to go and get Resolve if you haven't already. Make sure to get DaVinci Resolve and not Resolve Studio, which is the paid version. If you're just getting started with video production, you definitely don't need to pay for it. The reason I'm focusing this video on Resolve is the price. Resolve is totally free, and it's pretty amazing. Okay, this video is not going to try to show you every feature of Resolve, obviously. The point is to give you someplace to start. It's just a sort of whirlwind tour. I highly recommend the LinkedIn Learn trainings on Resolve for a much more in-depth look at how to work with it. Okay, launch Resolve. You're going to come to a screen like this one. Double-click on Untitled Project to create a new project. The first key to understanding Resolve is to know that it's really a whole set of tools all wrapped up in a single package. At the bottom of your screen, you can see those tools or workspaces. Resolve has these laid out in a sort of chronological order. Many people will basically work left to right through each of these workspaces. To get started, you really only need to use Media, Edit, and Deliver, but I'll talk briefly about the others as I go through this edit. So I'm going to start at Media. This is where you tell Resolve what files we need for our project. You can go to File, Import Media, or you can right-click down in the area that says No Clips in Media Pool. I'm going to import my entire Assets folder. I'm going to skip over the Cut workspace now. I don't personally use it. It's meant to simplify making a rough cut and make it more like using iMovie or Windows Movie Maker, but I just don't find it that useful. So I'm on to the Edit tool. First things first, I'm going to drop on my opening motion graphic. Now, before I begin editing, I'm going to make a couple of changes to the way the timeline displays. My whole edit is based on the audio from a single master shot, so I want to see the audio waveform. I also like to see the video in the timeline area, so it's easy to see what each item in there is. Now, in my master shot here, I'm going to find where I start talking. About there, and mark that as the in point by pressing I on the keyboard. Then I'll find the N, and press O to mark my out point. Now I can drag this onto my timeline. This is just a rough cut for now. We'll revisit this transition in a few minutes. I can zoom in and out with this slider here, or with Command or Control plus and minus. Shift-Z will zoom to fit your whole timeline. Okay, I'm going to start playing forward by pressing the spacebar and find my first insert point. And there, I'm about to say the name of the book, and I've got a neat little slider shot of the book, so let's insert that. I'll find an in and an out. and mark them with I and O. I only want the video, not the audio, so I can hover my mouse here and grab the little film strip looking thing here and drag that to snap onto the playhead. Now I'm going to put it in the track above my master so it covers it up. Okay, I ran this slide really slowly. So I can speed it up by right-clicking and choosing Change Clip Speed. And I'll make it 1600%. There, that looks better. Now let's find where it needs to end. I'm done talking about the book here, so I can grab the end of the clip. Make sure I've got this icon here and just drag it back. This is still just a rough cut. I can massage this later. Now let's move on to a bit of actual cutting. I've got this deal where I list all the ingredients and I want them to sort of magically appear in the shot. So let me just fast forward to about a minute in. Okay, here I start listing the ingredients. There are a couple of ways of approaching this, but I want to show you how to use the blade and ripple delete, so that's how I'm going to work today. I'm going to find the out point because there's a little bit of garbage at the end, and then I'll start by dropping the video onto my second video track. The first thing I notice is I need to run the footage backwards, so I'm going to time reverse it, which I can do by checking this box. Voila, it's backwards. Now I can see very clearly in my audio where I list out each ingredient, so I don't even have to watch it at this point. I'm going to position my playhead right at the beginning of the first ingredient. Then I'll press B on the keyboard to select the blade tool. And I'm going to cut my ingredients footage right there. Now I have to scan forward and find where I've got the first ingredient in there. And cut again. Now I want to do what's called a ripple edit. Really, in this case, a ripple delete. That means I'm going to make a change to my timeline, and I want everything after it to move with the change. For a delete, that means my footage will be moved up to fill any gaps the delete caused. I'll press the A key on my keyboard to choose the Select tool, then click on the clip I want to delete, then press either the Delete key on my keyboard or press Shift-Backspace if your keyboard doesn't have a delete key. Mac users, your delete is really backspace, so use Shift-Delete. Sorry, that's just the way it is. You can see that my clips shifted to fill the deleted area. Okay, I'll demo this again. You're probably going to do a lot of this. Press B to get the blade. Move my playhead to the next time I say an ingredient. Cut it again. Move to the place where that ingredient is on screen. Cut it again. A for selection mode. Click. Shift-Delete for Mac users, delete for PC. Voila. So I can knock the rest of this edit out quickly. This is great for doing things like tightening up screen recordings, eliminating awkward pauses, and that sort of thing. It's not so good for live footage because you'll see the cuts, like this. I want to show you how to add a couple of quick title overlays. I'm going to go back to the beginning of my timeline here and tweak the intro. Okay, I want to make a quick change to this intro. I want the audio from the motion graphic to spill over into the next clip a bit. First, I actually designed this motion graphic with some extra space at the end, so I'm going to trim it up a little bit by double-clicking on its audio to load it in the viewer. Go to the end. And mark a new out point. Now you can see that was a non-rippling edit, so I've got a gap. Now I'm going to move my graphic and its audio into Video 2 and Audio 2 just by dragging it. Now I'm going to unlink the audio from the video so that the video can end, but the audio will keep playing. I right-clicked, and I will choose Link Clips. Once you've done this to a clip, you have to be careful because now it's possible for your audio to get out of sync with your video. I usually make the cut I need, then link them back together. I'll now trim back that motion graphic a bit. Okay, now, so I don't mess up all of my other edits, I need to move my entire timeline after this point. To select everything from the playhead on, use Option Y on the Mac or Alt Y on the PC. So now I'm going to drag my clips all back until they line up. I'm going to move my motion graphic down onto video 1 again, but since it's unlinked from the audio will stay on audio 2, which is what I want. Now I want to add a transition, but only to the video, not the audio. So I'm going to unlink my master clip for a moment here. Now I can right-click on the transition and add a cross dissolve. There are hundreds of other transitions, but you'll only use them in special cases. You can find them in the effects library. Let's watch it. Okay, it's close. There's just a bit of delay. Now to avoid screwing up the sync with my audio, I'm going to relink these clips. So now I want to change the in point of my master shot, but I want this to be a rippling edit. Resolve calls this trim edit mode. This button here, or T, on the keyboard. If I now get this cursor here, and then click and drag, and you can see that I can adjust that in point, and that everything stays all linked up. Okay, that's much better. Still too much hand waving, but I can't really fix that without reshooting. Oh well. All right, now I'm introducing myself. I should add a little graphic with my name. I'm going to use a canned graphic from the effects library. It's in the title section. And I'm going to use lower third simple box 2 line. I'll drag that on and start it animating in when the transition finishes. Now I need to add my name and title. To do that, I use the inspector here. As you can see, there are a zillion settings, and this is all just the tip of the iceberg. The motion graphics and special effects stuff in Resolve is part of the Fusion tool. If you really want to dig in, look on LinkedIn Learn for their Fusion 7 training. You can really go crazy if you want to. The training is for an older version of Fusion, but it's still applicable to the version of Fusion that's now integrated into Resolve. Okay, next let's look at adding just some plain text to the screen. Here, I should put on the screen a little available on Hoopla tag. So still in my effects library up at the top, I can just choose text. Maybe I'll have it appear when I say Hoopla. Right there. Okay. I need to change the title in here. And Times New Roman's pretty terrible there. Maybe I'll use Myriad Pro Bold. And I'll move the text up a bit. And it looks like I'd better add an outline and probably a shadow. Much better. Okay, last, let's animate it. Animation in Resolve is based on keyframes. You set what you want things to look like at one time on your timeline, then you go to another time, change what things look like, and Resolve will animate between the two. Obviously, that's simplifying things a bit, but let's animate our text here so you can get the idea. I want it to drop in from above, so I like where it is right now. I'm going to actually make the clip a little longer before the playhead to give me the time for the animation. I'll add maybe 15 frames. And I can see that it's adding at the end there because I'm still in my trim tool. So I'm going to undo that change and hit A to make sure to select my normal select tool. And now I can add 15 frames ahead of that time. Now I'm going to tell Resolve to keyframe my text's position. That's all these little diamonds that you see here. You can animate anything with a diamond next to it, and you can select as many as you want. Maybe I'll make it zoom a little too. So I've clicked the 2 diamonds. That turned on keyframe animation for those 2 properties and added a keyframe at my current time with their current values. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning of the clip by pressing the up arrow. And I'm going to change the text. I'm going to zoom out a bit. And you can see that as soon as I change that, which I did by clicking on the number and dragging left to make it smaller, the keyframe indicator lights up telling me that Resolve is adding a keyframe for the zoom at the current timeline position. Now I'll shift the text up and off the screen entirely so that it flies in during the animation. Okay, let's run it and see what we get. Lovely, that works nicely. Okay, so those are the core tools for editing in the Edit tab. It may be that once you've gotten done here, you're ready to deliver, but I want to take a quick tour through the other workspaces. Fusion is for doing special effects, fancier animations, motion graphics, that sort of thing, and it's way beyond the scope of this video. Check out the LinkedIn Learn training on Fusion 7 if you want to go crazy there. Next, we have the Color tool. This is really the whole reason Blackmagic wrote Resolve in the first place, to do color correction. Color correction is one of the big things that separates amateur work from professional. There is an excellent training on color correction in LinkedIn Learn's Resolve 12 training, chapters 7 through 12. Not the current version, it's an older training. Let me just show you a quick before and after. Here's what the uncorrected footage looks like. Here's the grade I'd apply to it. So the before and the after. Now, I'm by no means a professional colorist, but even with my basic knowledge, I can really improve my shots and improve how well they match each other. So if you really want to step up your game, consider getting into some basic color correction. Okay, the next tool is Fairlight, which despite its name is not about light at all. It's about sound. This is your audio mixer. Here's where you can remove background noise, get your various levels to match, etc. If you go to the effects library here, you'll see that now instead of video effects, it's showing audio effects. There's a lot in here, but the one you're probably most interested in is the noise reduction. Now you can see I'm wearing a lapel mic, so I actually have very little background noise. Still, this can help clean up the little house noises and some of the room reverberation. Of course, there's a ton more to Fairlight, and LinkedIn Learn has a lot of classes on audio mixing. Finally, the Deliver tool, which you will definitely use. This is where you actually output your video in final form. For delivery to social media, it's really easy. Just choose your YouTube 1080p preset, give it a name, and click Add to Render Queue. Then come over to the render queue, which only has our single render in it, and click Start Render. Fast forward, and you've completed your render. Wow, that was a lot. And it was only the beginning. I hope this video has inspired you to take your video production to the next level. If you have any questions or need assistance, please feel free to contact me at Hennes@pioneerlibrarysystem.org, whether you are a Pioneer cardholder or an employee. I'm always happy to help.